Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 227 of the Dudes and Beer podcast. I am Chris Jordan, your host. Tonight with me in the studio, I actually have a very good road buddy of mine that I'm on the road with regularly. Andy McDearman is joining us this evening to discuss the new Neuralink technology that Elon Musk has announced, basically a brain implant that will give you a brain-machine interface. Joining us for that discussion this evening, as well as updates on the Cuban electronic attack that our embassy people there and in China both experienced. There's been some great news updates with that, so we will be discussing that with Dr. John Hall. Yeah, this evening, Dr. John, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Great to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah, man, it has. It's been a few months, and, you know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We need to have you on more regularly. Even our conversations on Facebook that go on, stuff like that, apparently, Dudes and Beer is like a veiled right-wing conspiracy place. Who knew? Who knew? Like,
thinly veiled.
Thinly veiled. That's right. At least I've got a veil, right? I was like, okay. I was very, very happy to see everybody in the group just kind of jump up and go, wow, do you actually read the articles that are posted here? Or have you seen like 3 or 4 of them? It was great. So, that's why we have the group, folks, is for interaction like that, so that conversations do happen. Things like Neuralink that's going on with Elon Musk. And as soon as I saw the announcement that it was happening, I was like, I've got to get Dr. John on to talk about this. And before we get into it, I really want to let Elon do the talking. I've got about 2.5 minutes. He gave about a 20-minute long, 18.5-minute long presentation. Things that Andy and I are very used to cueing in the background whenever the executive takes the stage. So here is the first 2 minutes of that, which is great. It lays out some of the technology, the way that they are recording and playing back senses being passed between neurons, stuff like that. So let's check that out, everybody.
The main reason for doing this presentation is recruiting. And this will be a slow process where we will gradually increase the issues that we solve until ultimately we can do a full brain-machine interface. Yeah, this is going to sound pretty weird, but achieve a sort of symbiosis with artificial intelligence. But I think with a high bandwidth brain-machine interface, I think we can actually go along for the ride. And we can effectively have the option of merging with AI. I think this is extremely important.
Composed of nearly 100 billion cells called neurons. Neurons come in
that
many
is how he
complex
actively
shapes.
cued it.
Generally,
live.
they have a dendritic arbor,
his own cue, but
a cell body called a soma, and an axon. The neurons of your brain connect to form a large network through axon-dendrite junctions called synapses. At these connection points, neurons communicate with each other using chemical signals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are released from the end of an axon in response to an electrical spike called an action potential. When a cell receives enough of the right kind of neurotransmitter input, a chain reaction is triggered that causes an action potential to fire, and the neuron to in turn relay messages to its own downstream synapses. Action potentials produce an electric field that spreads from the neuron and can be detected by placing electrodes nearby, allowing recording of the information represented by a neuron.
Our goal is to record from and stimulate spikes in neurons and do so in a way that is orders of magnitude more than anything that's been done to date, and safe and good enough that you can. It's not like a major operation. It's sort of equivalent to sort of a LASIK type of thing. So this is in contrast to the best FDA approved system, which is like a Parkinson's deep brain stimulation thing, which would have on the order of 10 electrodes. So the system, even in version 1 that we're going to unveil today, is capable of 1,000 times more electrodes than the best system out there, and they're all read and write.
And that's what blew my mind, Doctor, was the 1,000 times better. What they're talking about that they have right now, not what they're talking about that they want to release. What they want to eventually release is the LASIK type implant. Of course, that's the dream, but he's saying that he thinks that they can get there because the technology that they're already implementing is 1,000 times better than what those other FDA-approved devices are doing.
What you're thinking is basically...
Andy's right. They've been using this on rats already. So they pretty much are there with it. And the
Sure.
technology, I mean, is pretty impressive. It's definitely going to usher in a brave new world. And I think they finally prepped the population for it, because everybody younger than us, isn't separated from their phone much already. So, I mean, the idea that they'll be able to use thought to control Google and Facebook will certainly appeal to some of the younger generation, that's for sure.
But do you think that by 1,000 times better, they're talking about things that already exist, like neural, like implant control, like for people who have lost legs and things like that, where they already have the ability to use your brain signals to control a device like a leg?
Yeah, and that's one of the things, if you read the articles, that they're really kind of gearing this toward, which is an unusual front. I mean, typically we see weaponization of this kind of technology, and then, it's used for the betterment of the human suffering later down the line.
Right.
This time, because it's kind of, Orwellian or Frankensteinish, I think they've decided to go with the human interest part of the technology prior to the weaponization of it, which is certainly going to be a fear for a lot of people. But you're right. We already are using the ability to scan and pick up the electro impulses from the visual and auditory cortex to control thought-controlled robotic arms and things like that. As a matter of fact, I had a patient that came in with one not long ago where they used prevocal or subvocal speech signals in order to move the hand and move the fingers and grip and stuff. So that's already being done, but he's right. It's limited by the number of channels that is being actually picked up in the thought process. And to give you an idea, you're not thinking, I need to move my hand. You're more like kind of thinking that you're going to say, I'm going to move my hand. And it's actually that signal that's going to your vocal cords that actually moves the appendage.
Oh, wow. Really? I didn't understand that.
Yeah. And things have come pretty far. I know in 2018, I've got the article. I've got quite a few articles linked in the promo post for the episode, as well as the episode post itself. We'll have all those mirrored. But one of them is from Futurism.com, where a Florida man becomes first person to live with advanced mind control robotic arm. He lost his arm to cancer and is testing out the $120 million prosthetic. So, like, he's the first one to have an implant inside of him that is actively reading his mind and making the arm move. Now, granted, it's very much like you said, in almost more of a binary way, where it's like, I'm going to think about opening my hand now. And that process starts the process moving. One of the other articles that I posted was from Defense One, which is very much like one of the white papers put out by the Pentagon. Like whenever Defense One's putting something out, it's like saying, "Hey, here's a nice new press release." This was about this time last year, I want to say, September 2018, as a matter of fact. It's now possible to telepathically communicate with a drone swarm. They're talking about EEG machines and software and Neuralink style headbands that are worn by soldiers where they can control up to 3 drones per soldier with mere thought, thinking up, down, left, right, forward, back, focus, zoom in, that kind of stuff.
How do you
Well, and they prepped us. They prepped us for it. If you remember, about 10 years ago, the Mind Ray toy came out, where you could move a ball, floating over pillows of air using your EEG.
Yeah, it was
your brain. So,
the Jedi Mind Trainer. I still want to get one. It actually reads your alpha waves, and the more relaxed and focused you get, the more your alpha waves peak, and the higher the ball goes. Like,
so they've been slowly prepping us to accept the technology. And the interesting thing too is the way that Elon Musk has kind of presented the way that they're going to implant these fibers, and they've actually created a robot that actually, and we're using robots a lot in surgery, especially for prostate surgery, and really hard to get to. One of them's called a Da Vinci system, and they've created a robot that actually can place these filaments, allegedly by avoiding all the vasculature in the brain, which there's a lot of it. And certainly if you rupture any of the vessels in the brain, you're going to cause a stroke or a hemorrhage there, which will be debilitating for the patient that's having it done. But, allegedly, they've got this down to where it can be done, at least so far, it's been done pretty safely in rats. So, we'll see how it's being done in humans, and we'll see who volunteers to be the guinea pigs for that. But I'm sure they won't have any problem finding that. So.
Well, I believe I've heard Elon Musk say in a video that was kind of extended from that audio that we already heard that they use these like fibrous like things that are so thin that it essentially pushes the tissues apart instead of piercing.
Yeah.
And so that it can push past things like blood vessels and stuff like that without puncturing like a needle for, what do they call it? Acupuncture. Like an acupuncture needle, except for finer than that. And I think they're probably using nanographene fibers, and because there's a lot of people doing research right now on I would hesitate to say mind control, but it's actually probably more brain control.
Yeah,
using graphene, because graphene is a nanoparticle that, when stimulated with light, actually creates a charge, creates a current, a microcurrent. And I know one of the things they're doing now is putting these basically micrometer-sized, looks like specks of glitter that are made out of graphene. And then if you light them up with the right frequency of light, then they emit, a very, very small charge, enough to change an action potential in a dendrite between nerve cells.
Yeah.
And they've actually got to or read it. And they've got to the point now where they actually, once the graphene is in, and graphene's small enough that it can be implanted into the brain intravascularly through the bloodstream, that they've even figured out the right wavelength of light to be able to stimulate that graphene outside the skull. So you don't have to place a fiber optic tubule through the skull to stimulate it intracranially. The light can be external to the skull.
What light penetrates deep enough in order to do that?
They finally found the right.
Yeah,
they finally found the right wavelength of light to do it. I'm not certain what wavelength, if that was even in any of the articles that I've seen. But and kind of like even an Elon Musk article, if you noticed, there's no other names attached to this but him. Right. So we really don't know who's doing the research on any of this either, and that would be interesting to see.
Right, that's
if it's
true.
Part of the if some of it's part of the brain initiative.
So my biggest question about this technology is, do we think that this is able to actually transfer information or experience into a person through some sort of machine or, computer interface, like a matrix kind of thing?
He said record and play.
Right, yeah, I heard that. And he also said merge with AI, which to me sounds like, in the Matrix, where the guy's like, I don't know how to fly this helicopter, but hang on one sec.
Well, they've already talked about being able to upload information into the brain. Done.
Yeah.
Can already be done. We already know that. But I think what he's talking about is more like, imagine having, not VR, but augmented reality, without having to have a HoloLens in front of your face, without having to have a piece of glass in front of your face. It would literally be like, hey, look, we can just kind of like, migrate these neurons over here in this part of your eye and make that into a tiny screen of so many pixels. And we're just going to hijack those pixels and, put in advertising. Like we talked about that with Gray Scott. He's a futurist.
Right.
Where it's like, how long, if they can record your dreams, they've already recorded a dream in Japan a few years ago. It wasn't a huge amount of detail, things like that, but it was there. It was wild. They recorded data from a dream that could be seen on a screen. It was intense. So if that can be done, and we know, like, here's the paper from phys.org talking about how the Pentagon used money to investigate lasers that put voices into your head by vibrating your skull at a certain frequency. And when you're talking about even the lasers that we use, like high-powered green lasers, you're talking about in the nanometer range. So, yeah, like that's some vibration. If it's enough vibration to possibly light a match or pop a balloon.
Sure.
Well, and that's the same technology the FBI has been using forever to monitor your conversations in the room by bouncing a laser off of the window panes of the home. That's the same thing. You're actually measuring acoustic energy and then digitally turning it back into sound.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one way to think about it, really. Even to put it into audio engineer terms for us, like if we reversed the voltage on this microphone, we could listen to stuff like it's a tiny speaker. And if we wired the headphones backwards, we could technically talk into them, even though it would be really low. Much like the telepathic control of drones, how long before that drone can send a signal to us?
Exactly.
Well, it would have to, right? If you're controlling a drone, you have to be able to receive input from it, right? You have to be able to see what it sees, or in order, you know what I mean? Like, or get some sort of information in order to control it.
Well, and the current technology, what he's talking about too, is you could basically have a hearing aid size transmitter, that you would wear that would, pick up the signals and, from, the intracranial fibers. But it is kind of like you said, and currently it's being designed so you can patch into the internet or patch into AI. So it's exactly like you were thinking that, if all of a sudden the pilot had a heart attack in the plane, you could sit down and, as long as you had the computer power to do it near you, scan Google, until you find in an emergency, how to fly, what are the 4 controls you've got to know to actually survive.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of that, I guess that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because, that since it's read and write, as he said, then that also means someone that can access, those fibers and that transceiver, and there will be somebody to access it. Medtronic and Boston Scientific.
Like you could actually
they've already ran it.
My God, I'm going to have that emergency action tone literally in my head now.
Because they've been hacking into Boston Scientific pacemakers and neurostimulators, anything that's computerized and put in the body, they've been able to hack into it. As a matter of fact, Boston Scientific had to call back all of their pacemakers to have the software updated so they couldn't be hacked. Imagine somebody being able to hack into your pacemaker.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like literally these, like the last generation of like computer bugs where like Spectre, where they are literally looking at physical changes of the chip, in order to extract information. Like you're literally extracting information from the surface of the chip at that point. And that's how these things are starting to function. So, I mean, it doesn't seem that far-fetched that they're able to implement the same kinds of controls,
Yeah.
But just the fact that he hasn't mentioned any of the companies or any of the people that are helping him with this research, though, kind of makes me wonder if a lot of this originated with the Brain Initiative that Obama started.
Yes.
A lot of money got dumped into neural funding, and a lot of it's being done at McGill University in Canada, which was, a big player in MK Ultra. That's the only thing that worries me, because anything that's in you can be controlled by someone else, and especially if it's something that can actually initiate you to think in a particular way or say something in a particular manner, then you're going to have to worry about control issues there, and just the era in society that this is coming down the road in is an era when we've already got a younger generation who pretty much has given up on privacy because they've never known it in truth. And, I know when I do lectures on targeting and on control, especially if it's people in their 20s and 30s, and usually the comment I get from that age group is, well, what's it matter if they're watching everything you do? As long as you're not doing anything criminal, who cares if they watch? And the government's going to know everything anyway. And for that generation, they're right. I mean, they've been bioidentified since the minute they set foot in a school. They've been, DNA banked, by blood that was, gotten from their heel for phenylketonuria testing when they were infants. I mean, they are cataloged, just like soldiers are cataloged at the VA. So they're kind of right, I guess, that, they've really never enjoyed privacy, the way, somebody that's, over 50, remembers a time when, you had one phone in the house. It was usually in the kitchen. It was a rotary dial. Not everybody had a cell phone or a bag phone. Nobody was taking pictures everywhere. There weren't cameras on every stoplight, on every pole, and every entrance to, every shop. And
yeah,
I mean, it's, we came a long way in a short time.
Right. But the thing that's interesting, though, is how willingly people they don't even realize what kind of information they're giving up. And then when you try to tell them, they're like, they're just so blasé about it. Like, it doesn't matter. And, like, I don't know, I'm 36. I'm kind of like right at the beginning of that, like, that generation where, like, I didn't have the internet until a particular age, where a lot of people younger than me just grew up having all of these technologies available to them. And I think a lot of them kind of have that attitude of, like, it doesn't really matter anyways. Like, your information is already available, but you have so much control over it, and people don't exercise it at all. Like, they willingly participate, and then when you explain it to them, they're like, oh, well, whatever,
Well, it
was fun.
It just happened again. Like, one more
with the
time.
Face app
with
thing.
the face app.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And years ago, when it happened with Gold Dress, Blue Dress, it came out that it was the CIA running, like, a social experiment.
Really? I didn't actually... Yeah. Wow, I didn't hear that part.
Yeah. No, it was like some kind of social experiment that they were doing or something like that to be able to gauge social response on social media and perception, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, well, yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense that they would use it as a testing ground. Like, they absolutely funded Facebook. Like, In-Q-Tel, their financial arm, pretty much gave them most of the money to start up Facebook.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a data mining tool from the get-go.
Well, and we've talked about that numerous times on the show, not just with you, but with our Sean McCleskey, former Secret Service fraud investigator. Like, number one, when will we have a digital age of consent? When will we get to a point that we're seeing your child, Andy, my child, boy sleeping in the room next to us, coming up and going, look at all this evidence, Your Honor. All these episodes are out on the internet. He knew that he was giving away my biometric data whenever he posted a photo of me online. I don't care if he used my name or not. You know, he knew what he was doing.
That makes me nervous
gross
too.
negligence.
Like, I do worry about posting
but,
pictures of my daughter online. Like, that's something that I think about.
Well, yeah, because
unless you
pay crazy money for bone shaving and stuff like that biometric data ain't changing. Unless drastic things happen.
These face-changing apps also make you think, too. Like, I mean, you're posting a picture...
Makes some Russian people think is what they do.
Well, no, I mean, in my case, like, I post pictures of my daughter who's almost 2 years old, and, like, I mean, can you use that technology to see what she would look like in 8 years accurately enough to, if I stopped posting pictures of her at this point, identify her in 8 years?
Prime example, my wife and I watched the Dumbo movie the other day, the new one, the live-action version of Dumbo. Actually really well done. I'm a grown man, but I'll say it. I wept like I lost my cougar best friend, because I have to say something manly when I say that I wept. So I lost my cougar best friend climbing the mountain, and I wept after. It was amazingly well done, but there was a moment where it showed a picture of Colin Farrell and the person that was supposed to be the little girl's dead mother. And Amy was like, oh my God, they found an actress that was a dead ringer for that little girl grown up. And I was like, no, why would they ever pay an actress for like a still picture? They absolutely used aging software and just aged her by 20 years.
Yeah.
Done. Done. Yeah. There it is.
And
Photoshop it next to Colin Farrell. There's your special
brought that home the other night.
Yeah,
we sat through that. It was actually a pretty good movie. It was kind of odd seeing Michael Keaton as a bad guy. But,
yeah. It was very well done though. I was very impressed. And, it's interesting though how movies, because we were talking about it before we came in to call you. How many movies have dealt with the topic of man meets machine, brain-machine interface? You were referencing The Matrix earlier.
Sure, I think that's kind of like a classic example.
Yeah, but even going back to Johnny Mnemonic,
sure.
Stuff like that, where he had the upgrade in his brain that was overloading because he put too much info in there. It is the stuff of science fiction, but we are getting to the point technologically now where it is science fact that we can control. I was showing Andy earlier a device that you can actively control with a Muse headset, which is one of the headsets. It's like an EEG, electroencephalograph, reads your waveforms from your brain, and you can check them out and get better at meditating and things like that. And this device, you can plug that in and then plug it into a synthesizer, and it will make music with the waveforms coming out of your brain. And I was like, I think I need one of those.
Yeah, it does sound cool.
But it's wild to know that this technology, like, you can go on right now, folks, and for $150 have an EEG net. You can go on and buy one with the software on Amazon for like $150 and monitor your own brain waves at home. See what your stress points are. See what your stress factors are. That kind of stuff, which is great. Like, we need to have Rusty Lozano back on. He actually does biofeedback therapy and uses that technology to put people through stressful situations, record all of their biofeedback, and then show it to them later. And go, look, this is how your body reacted. How can we psychologically get you to a point where you can handle that? and it's great.
And one of the things with this technology too is they capitalize on the ever growing laziness of Americans too. And kind of we were talking about the Face app, the Russian bot that and the Russians and the Chinese probably just sit back and go, how do these people do as well as they do in war? Because they see the American public fall for every one of those bots that they throw down. I mean, the sillier it is, look, we got 90% of the population to do the face aging app,
Yeah,
right. And, they probably do just sit back and laugh, but that is really what, this Elon Musk technology and any of the technology capitalizes on is, man, if I can get this from Amazon, that means I don't have to get in the car, drive down to the grocery store and get it. I'll wait a day for it to get it on Prime and just sit in my bed watching Netflix and order it on the computer. And now, now I can have this implanted in my brain where I don't even have to put my finger on the computer. I can just think what I want and order it telepathically, sort of, and have it come to the house. I mean, and that will be the selling point to a lot of people is that, now you just think what you want and, your credit card will be stored, in the ether there and just, it'll be pay with your brain and, and then Amazon delivers it to you with a drone the next day.
Do you think you'll have any recourse if it's like an accidental, like you had this fleeting thought and then you're like, oh shit, never mind.
My God, buyer's remorse is going to be just out of pocket.
Well, see, and that's another issue that they haven't talked about with this is, and it kind of goes back to Born Identity and some of the movies like that is, if you have people implanted in bulk, with that type of technology, somewhere somebody is going to be monitoring it more than likely, rather than just yourself.
Oh yeah.
Well, then if it's monitoring your thoughts, well, then you kind of get into that pre-crime. Legal issue is, if you've got somebody that's in a bad relationship and they're thinking about murdering their wife, well, is the thought alone going to be enough to get you arrested?
Right.
And if those thoughts are being monitored.
That's why you need to learn to think that way and be like, thank God I don't want to go put her in a river or something. You got to learn to rewire the way you think about it.
It's like answering a question Jeopardy style.
Like that way it's always a what if. Like I wasn't really thinking about it. Listen to that. What kind of fool would think about putting somebody in a river?
Well, and the ironic thing is that with the targeting stuff, that is one of the things that we've had to teach a lot of targeted individuals to do that are under experimental technology that does pick up and digitally decode subvocal speech, essentially your thoughts, because they can't keep a code or anything like that on their alarms in their homes, because the minute they think about it, then it actually gets transmitted and gets received and gets decoded. Yep. So one of the things that we have taught with a lot of these people is basically how to do things without thinking. So, like if you've got an ADT alarm and it's time for you to change your code, you're going to sit there going, okay, I think I'll use 5467, 5467. Well, that actually can be picked up and received.
Sure.
So, that way people always break in and they never, for a long time, they wouldn't figure out, I don't know how these people are getting around my
From what distance can that be received, though?
According to CIA sources, can be received via satellite if there's basically a web type receiver down on you if you're under active surveillance.
So like you only have to have something placed in your house or on your person or nearby, at least.
Well,
like you
no,
have to be targeted.
You already
in
have
that
to be
way.
under the exactly. You have to be under the gun, and many things that you can be targeted with DNA resonance. You could be targeted by your dental fillings, by any metallic implants you have that set you apart from the rest of the population. But body recognition, spatial recognition, facial recognition. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways. So, or from brain fingerprinting, which is actually picking up your particular EEG remotely. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways, and probably a combination of ways being done to those that have been chosen to be experimented on. And we've talked about this before. I think a lot of these people that are claiming to be targeted individuals have been randomly picked, as guinea pigs.
Yeah,
because if you look at the complaints, I mean, it's all over the nation. It's every major city. It's every country. And if you look at it, it looks like a group in every major city has been allowed to carte blanche pick whoever they want to experiment on, as long as the data gets back to the appropriate agency that's overseeing them, because it's a mixed bag of people that are voicing these complaints. It's not all blacks, not all whites, not all men, not all women. It's every nationality. I mean, it's a random sample.
Well, and, one of the interesting things, Doctor, is number one, the fact, like you said, it's a random sampling of people that seem to be targeted. In addition to that, one of the things I covered and was a concern for me whenever Google Glass started becoming popular was the utter invasion of the user's privacy, not just the privacy of those around you. That you may be recording, because like strip clubs started disallowing it. My wife's theater started disallowing it because, like, hey, you could be recording this whole performance and selling it later, that kind of stuff. And that's somebody's art. That's not cool. So bars started disallowing it. But what got me was the fact of the only way that thing's tracking and following you is an infrared laser. A weak infrared laser hitting your eyeball. Now, seems harmless enough, but it's the same thing that they use to read your O2 level on your fingertip in a doctor's office. Yeah. Same thing. So imagine if suddenly your bank started noticing the fact that, you're making like $200-300 withdrawals on a regular basis, and you seem to be under the influence whenever you do it because you've got your Google glasses on, and it can read your blood alcohol content. It can read what drugs you're on. It can read whether or not you took your prescription yesterday. All that kind of stuff. Same thing with the neural implant. It would be able to do the same thing. It would have access through those carbon fiber nanotubes to any close by blood vessel, anything like that, to be able to read or record.
How would you be able to turn it off if you didn't want to use it at that moment? You know?
Yeah.
Right.
There's no selective mega. What are you going to turn on your iPhone and let me turn on my brain chip app real quick? That's secure.
Well, allegedly you would be able to, the way it's in its nascent stages, you would remove the receiver that you would be carrying over your ear like a hearing aid. But,
which makes sense.
We already know that most of the brain functions can be monitored remotely already.
Yeah.
So, the main reason for this would be to actually control the brain. It would be more for the write part than the read part, I think, because the brain reading function remotely is already being done pretty successfully.
So you think this basically would be used for something like I need to learn how to fly a helicopter now, and give me that information and experience right now.
Or to be able for someone else on the outside to stimulate an active shooter.
Right.
Anything.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
because if you notice, most of these active shooters, the one in Florida, went to the FBI and said, I got back from the military. Somebody is trying to control my thoughts, and they're telling me to do these things, and I need help. And the FBI turned him back loose, knowing full well that he was going to do what he was going to do. So they're, believe it or not, and as you've seen with the FBI turnout against the Trump administration, I think the FBI may be on the side of gun control, not the side of gun rights. So, the more active shooters doing diabolical things, the closer they think they're going to get to gun control. So I think a lot of these shooters probably not all of them were just nuts and going running amok. I think some of them probably were controlled to do it.
Do you think gun control is an ultimate goal?
If you want to have a socialist government, it'll have to be. I mean, because that's the only thing that's going to avoid, blood in the streets between the have and the have-nots. At least, that once you reach full socialism, there's the proletariat, and the rest of the 90% of us are the have-nots. I mean, socialism, even if you paint it with democratic socialism, is still a step to full socialism or communism. Even Marx said that in his manifesto. It doesn't share the wealth; it shares the misery.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Instead of capitalism giving everybody within their capability a chance to do well, I mean, socialism locks everyone kind of into a lower class, just existing kind of society. When all the money kind of comes to the top, like you see in Venezuela, like you see in Russia, like you see in China. You've got the poor and really no middle class, and then you've got the political class.
Gotcha.
So you're really just concentrating the money, a little farther up to the top.
Well,
and capitalism with all its ills still gives you within your range of capability a chance to make it. And that doesn't mean spending $1 million on a Harvard education. You look at the guy that started Waste Management; he had a high school education. So
do you think that socialism is the end goal, and that right now we're experiencing sort of like capitalism trying to fight for its last breath before a transformation?
Yeah, I think so. I really do, because I think we've that's one thing I will say. The Democratic Party of today is not the Democratic Party of JFK. It has gone so far left that its ideals are socialistic. And they've brainwashed basically two generations of population to think that that's the right thing, through indoctrination in universities and public education. I mean, the only people who are fighting against it in the under 30 crowd are the people that had such strong parenting at home the other direction that they were able to withstand their college time and kind of, stick to different ideals than what they were indoctrinated with in university.
So you think
that if you look,
the educational institutions are trying to indoctrinate people in some way?
There's no doubt. I mean, how many conservative speakers do you see get booed and thrown out, or college campuses cancel their speeches because so many people are throwing a fit that they're going to come? I mean,
right.
I mean, that's in every major university.
Well, and granted, at one point, it was the socialist rhetoric that was put down. It was, and all of a few episodes, whenever we did talk to futurist Gray Scott, and it wasn't about anything political, but it was about the fact that people's memory tends to work in 7-year chunks. Which is one reason why the political dialogue is so easy to change, why it's so easy to sway from one means to another, even in the media, why it's so easy for political opinion to just utterly switch overnight as soon as something starts getting pushed or said. It is a means of control. It's a definite means of control that is used.
Well, I think the media is the ultimate means of control, and that's why there's so many people fighting to control it. Most
definitely. And talking about the Neuralink, talking about some of the subliminal technology that we've discussed before, right now, it did just come out that there are updates. A new study has been done specifically on the people that were victims at the Cuban embassy and at the Chinese. Well, they haven't said the Chinese embassy yet, but the Cuban embassy. And they've even given it a name. So it was interesting
the
to
Havana
see.
syndrome.
Yeah, the Havana syndrome. And it was wild to see that confirmation come from a couple of doctors. Like, we wish we had brain scans from before they went there, but they definitely all have a similar anomaly that does not exist in normal brain function and in normal brain scans.
Yeah, they found that in the cerebellum and a decreasing amount of white matter.
Yeah.
And that was in response to the original study that came out that said these people were definitely attacked by something. And it looks like it was probably some type of electromagnetic weapon or microwave-based weapon. Then, immediately Psychology Today and, the New York Times, who actually first posted, oh my God, these people were attacked by electromagnetic weapons. Well, then they came out with another article. Oh, it's so silly that they're saying this is, because the New York Times is going to go along with whatever seems to be the headline catching, story of the day, and they've heard all this before because the New York Times did a hatchet job on me several years back going, well, this technology seems far-fetched and we don't think it exists and da-da-da-da-da-da. But essentially said I was the Pied Piper of the mentally ill.
Yeah.
And,
if you want the patents, everybody, feel free to visit dudesandbeer.com/knowledge. All the patents for all this technology is right there in the Knowledge Vault. Go ahead, Doctor.
Well, then when it came out that they said that these people in Cuba were definitely attacked with electromagnetic weapons, probably of microwave or millimeter wave origin, which I had said on several radio shows the day that those people got plucked out of that embassy, because they were talking about acoustic weapons or sound-based weapons. And I'm about to push somebody else's show, but I was on Clyde Lewis that day, Ground Zero, and he goes, what do you think about this new story? And I said, it's not going to be acoustic weapons. Those don't have any distance at all. I said, it's going to be electromagnetic weapons. We'll see. Well, sure enough, a year later, they said, well, this looks like it was probably electromagnetic weapons. And now, then when they came out with a study trying to verify that, well, doctors from every realm of medicine and mostly psychiatrists, it's some kind of a mystery weapon that nobody knows about, and this is too far-fetched, and it's delusional disorder, and da-da-da-da-da. And Psychology Today came out real quick against that. And you have to remember that MKUltra and this type of technology and mind control, all of that was started under the guise of the American Psychiatric Association and the Canadian Psychiatric Association.
Yep.
So they are going to deny that any of this exists till the end. As a matter of fact, all the big names in MKUltra all died with glowing eulogies, and even after congressional hearings, never actually suffered a day in prison for their crimes against humanity. So, but Psychology Today came out with several articles immediately by people that don't know the facts about the weaponry or the facts about the victims, saying that it was group delusional disorder. And then they came out with, remember, it was crickets.
Yes.
That it,
yes.
Crickets. And then,
that it was a species of crickets.
Then they came out that it was possibly competing surveillance signals. That probably would be the most plausible, because I guarantee you there's electromagnetic surveillance from our side, from the Cuban side, and from the Russian side on every one of those.
And my curiosity, and I brought it up, I want to say in our first episode, because you and I, that was the first episode that I had you on. I remember I was in Florida for a show that I had annually when the reports started coming out about it, and I reached out to you and was like, oh my God, can you please come on my show? And we've been covering the updates on this since. It's been almost 2 years, Doc. And they've done nothing for the victims, except now Psychology Today and several government institutions have started I warned several of the victims. They go, well, I work for the government. I think the government's going to help. And I said, no, the government's going to turn its back on you and declare that you're mentally ill. Yeah. And that's exactly what they kind of started to do. So I'm hoping that maybe with this latest study showing that they do absolutely have brain changes compared to controls, that there are problems in the cerebellum and with the white matter, that maybe, just maybe, the government will have to speak up and say, well, we think we know what this is. And because once they do that, it's going to absolve a lot of the complaints that a lot of these targeted individuals have had for years.
Do you think that this might be related to, have you heard of the mosquito device thing that they use for youth deterrent in parks and stuff like that? That's essentially just a box that screams high-pitched sounds.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that by definition is also a directed energy weapon. And we've talked about this. You weren't on the show before, Chris and I, that I've actually got a little device that's, well, probably a little bit taller than my thumb and a little bit wider than my thumb. It's basically a tiny little speaker and a 9-volt battery. And it will actually clear a whole room of people that can't hear the sound that it's emitting, but they'll all start getting headaches and wanting to vomit. And until they figure out that there's something in the room making me do that, I'm going to sit like that. So,
and it's just a high-pitched tone or something like that at a really high volume.
Yeah, but and some people can perceive it, most can't.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, to give you an idea, I thought, you know, I'm going to test this thing out. And I took it to my office, and my actual office where my desk is was in a separate room with a big open door from the rest of the office where all the girls bringing in patients and doing MA work and billing work are. And I sat that thing behind a wall from that room and just clicked it on. And one by one, I had people coming in my door going, whatever you're doing, stop. Turn it off.
Right.
We're all getting, we're all getting nauseated. We're all getting headaches, and we're all going to have to leave this freaking building. And and this is a huge office. I mean, this is not a small office.
Right.
And that's a little device you can buy from Walmart.
Does it work off that same premise? As I guess what I was getting at is basically it's just a high pitched tone at a really loud volume that most people can't hear.
Yeah.
Or is it something else?
It's not I wouldn't say a loud volume. It's a loud magnitude. But it's just at the right frequency where it stimulates the nausea center in the brain.
Right. Gotcha.
Kind of like the brown sound.
Right.
Well,
okay. Gotcha.
where it starts giving you the warble inside your inner ear, that will give you disassociation, that will give you dizziness, and that's
the vestibular system, and that's actually what they found injured in these Cuban diplomats as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said, and I've got to talk to some people. I've got to see if I can make it happen. I've got to try and go out to Vegas a day or two early for my upcoming gig. But I do have a gig coming up that the first day of the show, probably my travel day, is the day of the storming of Area 51.
Oh, awesome.
I've got to go out and talk to people. Got to go out and cover.
Sure.
I've got to be there. Like, I don't care if nothing happens. I'm not going to be there when it happens, but people are camping out overnight. And I'll definitely try to go talk to some people, folks. But everyone's like, oh, they're going to get mowed down. I'm like, number one, I don't think anybody's going to mow down 250,000 people. I don't think that's going to happen.
They think that was actually started by a Russian bot as well.
Oh, yeah,
so a lot of
absolutely.
Those initial calls to action were Russian.
Oh, yeah, no, let's see what people would do to uprise against the American government. Absolutely. I doubt that not one bit. But here's the thing. The first thing I said was, you have no idea. There would not have to be a Sniper 1 involved. They would be able to take down that entire mass of 250,000 people via electronic means without ever leaving their 5-story under-the-ground bunker. Ever. They would not have to fire Weapon 1. They would not have to activate Landmine 1. There would be a pulse tone that goes out, and everyone would drop to their knees thinking that they are painfully on fire.
They would use millimeter wave technology on them.
You would all be in crippling pain within seconds. Like, you remember the voices that was randomly dropping into Iraqis' heads during the first Gulf War, telling them to surrender? The voice of Allah told me to put my gun down. It would be that. That's exactly what's going to happen to you whenever you cross that line. They aren't going to use bullets. It's going to be something much worse. You're going to wish that you were hit with a bullet.
But don't you think that's all peanuts, though, when you're talking about an adversary that may just be a bunch of billionaires who've had, like, quantum computer implants inserted into their brain through this?
I at least want a Pentium quad-core implant if they got quantum computer implants. I at least need to run Windows 7 in my head.
But the odd thing with all of this though is there's so much of this technology being used now for control. Same thing with your phones.
Yeah.
If you're talking on the phone and you start going, you know what, I'm thinking about looking at lawn tractors. We need to get a new riding lawnmower. Well, the next 3 texts you're going to get are from Sears, advertising,
Yeah,
riding lawnmowers, and that's the same thing you're going to get on your email. And now we have the Cuban embassy, the China embassy, the other doctors independently from me saying, yeah, it looks like they were hit with some type of electromagnetic weapon. We've got Elon Musk saying we now have the technology to read your thoughts. And still, when these people come forward to their doctor and go, you know what, I think somebody's trying to control my mind and I'm being followed everywhere I go, they're still labeled as mentally ill. And honestly, some of them probably are. But a lot of the victims I've spoke with that are, they were in their 40s, they can tell you the day that they started being followed, the license plates of the cars that followed them, usually trace back to a private investigative group. And can tell you the day that they started hearing voices in their head and experiencing home break-ins. That's not mental illness.
Yeah.
That's a crime being committed or experimentation being committed. And there's enough out there about it now that no one should doubt it. And really anybody is at risk for it.
Yeah. And, quite honestly, Doctor, I mean, like I said, you and I have been hot on the coattails of the story of Cuba and China since it first dropped. I've followed your work for years, but I honestly want to thank you on air because of you. I think the mission of this show really got cemented. And I know I forwarded you the email from the first person. I got one from another gentleman from across the globe. Not but a few weeks ago, telling me that, and it was a comment on your last episode appearance, telling me thank you so much for putting this information out there, that he was a targeted individual.
And just for some of your listeners, if I do get an email from you or forward it to you or find me on Facebook, don't get upset when you don't hear from me right away, because just so you know, I have to erase my entire inbox about once a week, just to be able to send and receive emails. That's how many emails I get. And that's why when a lot of the people who don't know anything about this targeting, they go, well, it must be a really small number of people that this is happening to. No, it's not. It's a huge number of people that this is happening to. And that's why, I mean, sometimes it may be weeks before I respond or months to an email to people, because by the time I get around to reading them, I've got, another several thousand that have come in. So, I mean, it's, as a matter of fact, my main inbox, I finally just had to just delete it all, because it was to a point where they're like, we're not going to let you send and receive till you start deleting emails. And the quickest and easiest way to do that is to actually delete the whole box. So, I mean, it's, it's the most reported crime online and to police that nobody is doing anything about it. And it's the exact things that were happening to those diplomats.
Yeah.
And now, one of the persons asked me, well, how do they shut the power off to your house to get around your alarm? Well, they use electromagnetic weapons that reverse the polarity in the transformer. You can actually shut power down at the transformer. And who finally came out today and said that Venezuela has actually, has actually complained that the CIA and the DoD is actually messing with them, shutting their power off, trying to start a revolution as best as they can, which honestly, in that country, anything to get rid of Maduro is probably a good thing. He's starving his own people, and I've got relatives there.
Yeah.
So,
and that's it. That's the wildest thing of all of it. I can't even use the word crazy, because I think it does the word crazy a disjustice whenever you use it for things that, like we're saying, have been proven. If you would like to see the technology, if you'd like to see the patents, if you'd like to see the studies, dudesandbeer.com/knowledge. It's there in the knowledge vault, folks. Go look it up. There's the patents for all of it, for being able to insert messages in people's brains with pulsed light, all kinds of stuff. So to say, and to hear Elon Musk even say that they would be able to read and record at 1,000 times the capacity of what's being done right now. That's wild. That's wild. And I guess, much like the technology of knowing how to put in a flash frame and a subliminal frame into a reel of film, is that right to sell coke like that? That's really the question. We raised that same question whenever we talked with Grace Scott about being able to record dreams. If you can record dreams, how long before you're getting advertisements in your dreams, that kind of stuff. So we're up against that technology right now, folks. We are in that top reaching part of the bell curve. It's crazy. Even the last conference that we worked, the NVIDIA conference, whenever we had the episode, we were talking about how they were saying that Moore's Law, what we calculate computer chips and speed and processing with, may be collapsing within the next 3 years. Like, the calculations that we use will just no longer be valid because of the type of computing that we're able to do. And that's wild. That's mind-numbing to think about. So
when you think about it, what you can do on your phone used to take a whole room.
Yeah.
Not long ago.
We went to the moon on less than a megabit.
Sure, that's true. Yeah, there's
I'm
all
just
sorts
saying.
of videos.
Just saying. Less than a megabit, man. Like a Casio digital watch has more than what took us to the moon. Straight up.
Or at least a Game Boy.
Or at least what they told us took us to the moon. On that note, Doc, I'm going to let you go. I know you. There's a reason we call him Doctor, folks. He is an actual doctor. He has patients to see in the morning. So anytime that he has the time to come on the show to talk about these topics, we're always grateful. You're always welcome on anytime. The opioid crisis episode was amazing and awesome and got great listens. And since then, there's been a couple more people. I mean, hey, the vice president just had to stop a trip to New Hampshire. Just had to stop a trip to New Hampshire because one of the people that he was supposed to be meeting and greeting with is under indictment right now with the FBI and the whole scandal, selling fentanyl and everything else. So that's how far this goes. It's been all over the place. So thank you so much for coming on. We need to do another episode about that, Doc.
Yeah, we do.
So,
and I always love being on your show, Chris. So keep educating your listeners, and I'll keep doing my part. There's got to be some of us with a sound mind actually fighting this. So
that's all we can do. At least me, being a right wing nut, or thinly veiled right wing nut. Sorry. Let me get it right. On that note, as we're shamelessly plugging, go ahead.
Just so your listeners understand that was a comment that somebody made on Facebook on the Dudes and
Come
Beer
join
site.
The conversation.
That his show was a thinly veiled right wing.
The group was. That's what's hilarious. I was like, have you ever listened to the show? Because the group is based on the show.
And the group and the show both are pretty middle of the road. I mean, it's not political either way.
And then the guy that made it wasn't even like a comment on a post, folks. It was just a dude that went like, "So here's this about this group," and then people in the group just kind of started chiming up. It was so great. It was utterly a point of like social autocorrect going on. People going like, and people that I know coming from both sides of the aisle, being like, no, tonight. I hope so. Shout out to Stephen Bishop out there, by the way. Love you, Steve. He texted me all kinds of goodies about those guys, so it was great. It was fun. It was beautiful. So thank you for everybody that tunes in. Doctor, tell them where they can go to check out the show that you have, because you've officially dropped a trailer for your movie, or for the series Death and Compromise. So congratulations on that.
Lot of irons in the fire. Got the books, A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America, Guinea Pigs, Technology of Control. Got the Western that we just got out of post, Death and Compromise. Go to the Death and Compromise Facebook post. We're going to be actually premiering that here pretty soon. Got another feature film crime drama that we just started called Vixens and Villains, with a team out of Houston.
Oh yeah, that's right. I need to call Tori.
Good. Yeah, Torians, and that's going to look good. We started filming that last Saturday, so a lot of irons in the fire, along with trying to work. So,
well, and you can't get it if you don't put it out there. It's just that simple. If you want to be a movie producer, folks, start producing movies. Yeah, start doing it.
But Death and Compromise has its own Facebook page. You can see the trailers there. We are going to be actually premiering the first season to a very limited audience at Alamo Draft House in Kyle pretty soon. Oh, and then we have actually have Elder Hall Film Festival coming up September 6th and 7th for a lot of Texas independent filmmakers. So nice.
Well, get with me. As long as I'm available, I'd love to come out and cover that for Talking Sound and everything else.
Cool. Then we'll have you there.
Absolutely. Well, tell them once again, tell the audience where they can go to get your books, Guinea Pigs, Technologies of Control, as well as A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism, where they can go to check out the series.
Have the Facebook page, Guinea Pigs, Technology of Control. Also, you can get my books on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. They're available there at both places. And then, like I said, Death and Compromise, our Western, is on Facebook with its own page, with its own trailers, and YouTube. And then Vixens and Villains out of Houston. It has its own Facebook page as well. It's just floating. So, nice. But and it's not a Western. It's not conspiracy theory. It's crime drama. Yeah, drugs and cartel. So, but really good script out of Houston, Texas, with a really good producer that has asked me to come on board and give him a hand with it. So, nice. I think it's going to look really good. Yeah.
Well, once again, always a pleasure having you on. Always a pleasure to have the great conversation and the font of knowledge that you are, to be able to share that with our audience. Thank you so much, Andy, for being here and for giving a call while you were in town.
Yeah, always absolutely. Love hanging out. And also, I wanted to thank you, also, Doctor, for indulging me in my questions. I'm kind of a newbie to this conversation, so it was interesting for me to be in this whole thing here.
Don't worry, I'll show you the path to the rabbit holes.
I enjoyed it greatly.
Well, it was great being with you guys, and I will see you next time.
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and let you go, Doctor, so take care. We'll talk to you soon, all right? I'll make sure and share links to the show as usual. Right. Take care.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a great
Andy.
evening.
Have a good one. Thank you.
All right. And while you are online checking out all the great work of Dr. John Hall, please do stop on by the Dudes and Beer podcast. Dudesandbeer.com is the website. That is where you can find all the episodes, where you can find the Knowledge Vault. It's also where you can find links to our parent network, the HC Universal Network, shows like Talking Sound, Yes But Why, Scary Dad, Gentlemen No Class, and more. Download the free app. It's there in the Android market, coming soon in iTunes. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, if you can't be good, be good at it. Bye-bye.
Android and iDevices, available on Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Breach.tv, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more about our sponsors and other podcasts on this network, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.